Awakening the Third Eye. Chapter number 22. Glimpses of what comes next. ISIS, the clairvision techniques of regression. A stable and reliable clairvoyance requires not only the building of some new subtle organs, but also the purification of the astral layer. This implies thoroughly exploring the roots of mental conflicts and emotional imbalances and eradicating mental conditioning. Having observed a large number of people working on themselves, I can say that those who never seem to get anywhere with their spiritual practice are quite often those who have neglected this phase of exploring and cleansing the mess of the mind. Before one can be supernormal, one has to become normal. As long as the daddy-mummy, girlfriend-boyfriend level of existence has not been sorted out, as long as deep negative emotional patterns have not been clarified, there is no need to pretend you are living a divine life. On the other hand, I have seen many seekers who had major openings of perception while undergoing a systematic process of regression through ISIS. Suddenly, after a critical release, their techniques of clairvoyance started working. Remember the example of the 1-meter-long pipe. As long as 1 single millimeter of the pipe is obstructed, you cannot see anything, even though 99.9% of the pipe is clear. In practice, it means that just a few unresolved emotions are enough to keep you completely blind to the spiritual worlds. If you have been practicing a form of spiritual work for a long period without any significant metaphysical breakthrough, I suggest you find a system, such as our method of regression, that will allow you to deeply explore and cleanse the negative emotional patterns of your subconscious mind. This might save you a considerable time of spiritual wandering. The vision of thought forms. The ISIS techniques, of which regression is one of the avenues, are based on an alchemical perspective. They aim at allowing you to feel, and later on to see, your emotions as forms. They gradually lead you to the point where your clairvoyant perception can behold emotions as colorful movements in the matter of the astral body. The samskaras, or seeds of emotional conditioning, can definitely be seen as spots and felt through your body of energy. This approach gives new keys to deal with unconscious complexes by revealing them as something extremely concrete and objective, as tangible on the astral level as weeds are on the physical level. Once your emotional field starts to clarify and emotions are revealed to your vision as forms, the following step is to reach a similar perception of thoughts. By an extension of the same process, it becomes possible to feel and see the thoughts as forms, or thought forms, little waves of astral energy rushing all around you. You can see and feel them coming from outside yourself and penetrating into your aura, and within a fraction of a second, a thought appears inside your mind. It is exactly like having the flu after catching a virus. Have you ever tried to stop thinking? This is a most frustrating and hopeless exercise. The more you try to make the mind silent, the more it rebels and reacts with unwanted thought activity. The reason most people can never achieve total mental silence is that they operate from their mind. They try to fight the mind mentally. They become aware of their thoughts only after they have already entered their mind, when it is far too late to do anything. If you reach the stage where you can see the thought forms coming from outside, then the situation is quite different. You can choose not to let them in and thus experience inner silence. You realize that until then, there was an unconscious mechanism that attracted the thoughts inside your head, pulling them in like a little hand. All you need to do is to release this mechanism, and peace of mind is achieved immediately. There is no fight, because you do not have to push the thought forms away, you just stop drawing them in. The transformation of thinking. As the process advances and the mind clarifies, seekers realize that two completely different forms of thinking take place inside them. One is based on reactions and conditioning. This is the thinking made of all the little thought forms that people catch like viruses. The other thinking is of a completely different nature. It does not appear like a mechanical chain of reactions, but like a creative activity of the soul. It is a thought that connects, exactly like the process of tuning, in that we described in chapter 11. Using this new mode, when you think of someone, a living connection is established with him, instead of just getting a postcard image of him in your mind. When you think of an object, the qualities of the object become alive in you. And therefore you experience a completely new palette of feelings, impressions, and sensations, which is the opposite of the sclerotic nature of the mind. A shift slowly takes place in the old thinking of the mind, the one based on conditioning and separative consciousness, is gradually replaced by the thinking of the supermind, or transubstantiated astral body, in which the heart plays a central role. You feel yourself thinking in your heart, just as the old thought process was previously taking place in your head. This thinking of the head was disconnected from the self. Now, thinking and self have married in the heart. Concurrently, a gradual transformation takes place in the blood. In the beginning, you just notice that you are more aware of your blood. Then you realize that a conscious life of the spirit is starting to shine in the blood. Just as, previously, it was obvious that the thinking process was all happening in your head, it becomes obvious that the self, the higher ego, is living in the blood. Before, your existence was mainly taking place in the thinking of the mind, in the head. Now you live more and more in the consciousness of the self, or spirit, in the blood. This new thinking is none other than a thinking of the self. You therefore get this clear perception that you are thinking with your blood, and not only your heart. Do not think these experiences are of a vague and floaty nature, like a sort of half-real ethereal subjectivity. On the contrary, these experiences are hyper-dense and infinitely more tangible than anything that was taking place in your consciousness before. If you look at how you were before the transformation, and compare it to the spirit of life now flowing in your blood, it is as if you had been walking on the planet like a zombie, not even knowing how empty your soul was. A deep sense of truth develops with the thinking of the blood. One of the obvious characteristics of the old form of thinking of the mind was doubt. The mind was doubting all the time. The only way for the mind to decide whether a proposition was true or not was to have recourse to logic, to engage in discussion and comparison to try and form an opinion. The thinking of the spirit, on the contrary, is endowed with an irresistible knowingness of truth. The purpose of your life shines in front of you. There is oneness and certitude as to where to take the next step. The quest for the Grail. The Grail is the vessel that received the blood of Christ. It is the central theme of the whole Western esoteric tradition. In terms of inner alchemy, the Grail is the vehicle that can receive the highest spirit. This refers to the building of the glorious body of immortality in which the highest consciousness of the self can be experienced. The body of immortality is a body of connection. In it, not only does the spirit live, but the whole creation, the macrocosm, as outlined in the Emerald Tablet. Et respit vim superiorem et inferiorem. And it comprehends the force from the things that are above and that are below. One should never consider that the spirit can be defined in any way. Due to its absolute nature, it encompasses many paradoxes. Whenever something is really true about it, then the opposite is usually true too. The more one knows the spirit, the more one realizes one's ignorance of its unfathomable depth. There is a great beauty in the fact that in English, the word initiate means both the one that was instructed into the mysteries and a beginner. I believe that the two meanings of the word should not be opposed but reconciled. Whatever your level of perception, wisdom and enlightenment, Always remember that you remain extremely confused as to the real nature of the divine, and that the human adventure is only at its beginning. This is the end of the book. Awakening the Third Eye by Samuel Sagan, MD. Break time equals 2000 milliseconds. Please listen to this recording minimum 3 times for better and long-term results. If you like this recording, please comment and share it with your friends and loved ones. Stay tuned for listening more books like this. Thank you and good luck.